Welcome. Well, we're really glad you came today, and we're grateful to so many people because the staff is short-staffed. Along with the weather and other complications, we have a spy that came in out of the cold, I think. And so Leslie Klein worked as a spy in the Army, but he's never told anybody exactly for whom he spied. And I don't know either, but he's going to reveal all today.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Klein. This is my Resident Revelation, my life as a spy. And before we get started, as in all intelligence briefings, there are certain requirements. And the first is I must reveal to you the classification of today's lecture. It's unclassified. That means it's publicly available on Google or Wikipedia if you know how to search. And once upon a time, when I was actually living these events, the entire lecture would have been classified. And it would have been classified, for the most part, top secret, special compartmentalized information, code word. What does that mean? Well, in addition to talking about my pretty interesting career as a spy, I'm going to talk about classifications. And before you go to sleep, you might ask, why are we talking about classifications? I'm talking government classifications. And the answer is a 5-letter dirty word, leaks. And we've had plenty of leaks in the last 2 years, and we've had many leaks before. How important is the release in terms of damage to the United States? What a crowd tonight. So, leaks. How important it is it that Trump's daily calendar for a 3-month period was leaked? Is that significant or irrelevant? How important was it that the information that the NSA was listening in on phone conversations, was that important or irrelevant? That's why we're going to talk about classifications. And finally, let's see if I can sit down here. And finally, I'm going to talk about what makes for a good spy. So, Janice, please click forward. Get a little theme music for us as we get ready. Oh, I'm sorry, one more requirement. Will anyone in the Emerald Hall who does not have an unclassified clearance please leave the room immediately? Okay, I guess no one's leaving. Oh, there goes one. Must be a space area. Okay. Next slide, Janice.
Can't hear you.
The music is so loud.
Okay, let's see if we're back on. Whoops. We have an important question to propose. Ever since I've been here a year and 2 months. Oh, God. This is why the program committee and the lifelong learning committee believe that the sound system in Emerald Hall really needs to be improved. Okay, let's see. No, it's not on, Janice. All right. On? No. Then it's going to be my voice. Been here a year and 2 months, and when we got to talking about what I did in the real world, you know Mirabella isn't the real world, right? We live in a nice, protected environment. It's kind of like Disney World in Florida. But in the real world, people would ask me what I did, and I always said, I'm a spy. And before I could even get another word out, they asked the second question, who did I work for? And before I could answer that, they started with guesses. And the most common guess was that I worked for the CIA. That would have made me an undercover agent, pretending to work for the Air Force while carrying out all types of secret covert missions for the CIA. And the second most popular was, I was a Russian spy. I heard that today.
Yes.
That made me a double agent, meaning I was pretending to work for the Air Force while passing secret classified information onto the Russians, or it sounds like I've lost this microphone. This is amazing.
It's on.
Is it on? And perhaps I was even a triple agent, working for the CIA, pretending to work for the Russians, feeding them disinformation.
Leslie, if you hold it against your shoulder.
All right, better?
Leslie.
I don't know what to do to make it work. I should know, the spy, if I were an alien, I'm killing the electronic systems here. All right, another guess was that I was actually hired to spy on Mirabella. Because after all, there are so many secrets here to be gleaned. And finally, I was a Mossad spy, another cover agent working for Israeli intelligence. So I think it's time for a vote. Let's see what you think before you learn by the end of the lecture what I really am. And we're gonna do it by a show of hands. So if you think I work for the CIA, raise your hand. Well, about 5, 10, 15 of you. I have to say it out loud for the videotape. Okay, how many think I was a Russian spy, double or triple agent? Or, wait, I am wearing the North Korean party pin. If you were in Phnom Penh right now, everybody on the Communist Party would have this.
Tap the top of it.
Well, this seems to be working against us. Okay, Russian spy or North Korean spy? What do you think? How many think I was one of those? Oh, about 5. Okay, an alien spy. How many think I'm really from outer space? That my mother was? Oh, that's by far the majority. How many of you think I was hired to spy on Mirabella? Oh, about 4. 5. Or how many think I was a Mossad spy? Well, next, Janice. One of those is actually real and true. The other are not, and I'm going to tell you which one it was by the end of the presentation. Next. I think we better define a spy. This is kind of like Bill Clinton saying it's what the meaning of the word is. Spying, and in this case government spying, is based on what the meaning of the word spy is. And here's the definition of person for military and government spying. A person employed by the government or someone else, like the CIA or the Russians, to spy secretly, obtain information about someone else. And there are 2 types of spies. The first are those who gather the information, James Bond types of spies. If there were 1 million spies on this planet, maybe 1,000 would be James Bond type. It's very, very rare. Then, the second most common is signals. Whoops, I hear our sound system is about to improve. So Darren is coming to get me fixed. So I will continue, well, unless he's coming up. No, +3 microphones stopped. Keep talking. Signals. We actually have a signals type of spy here at Mirabella, but they don't want to be revealed, so I'm not going to tell you who it is. But maybe you can find out if you're a spy. And finally, we have, there goes my microphone. Oh, maybe not. Okay, people who take pictures. You know, pictures are worth 1,000 words. And either by airplane or by satellite. And then we have the Clark Kent types of spies. People who sit behind a desk. 75% of the spies in the military sit behind a desk and analyze information. They're known as military intelligence specialists. Now, I still could be a Russian spy, but that would be an active gatherer. But I was a military intelligence officer in the Air Force. That type of spy. Perhaps I was more. Next. Okay, now we're going to turn to classified material because you've got to understand what's really happening. There are 4 types of classified information. Oh, I can use your clicker. That clicker has arrived. Janice would be thrilled. Whoops. Classified, confidential, secret, and top secret. That's all there is, 4 of them. And I'm going to go through them one at a time and tell you what they are. But before I go there, let's talk about sensitive compartmented information. Wow, what a mouthful. This is a top secret code word. Oh, wow. If it fails, I got the microphone. Okay. SCI. You know, the problem with being an alien spy is I kill microphones pretty quickly. As an analyst, we are given, with our top secret clearance, another type of clearance, and it's called SCI, Special Compartmentalized Information. And when I prepare a briefing, I have several code words that I have put on the cover page. I'll have examples of this in a moment. And it tells the reader that this is classified and gives them an extent of how classified it is. And there's the definition of classified. Material that the government body deems sensitive information that must be protected. Okay, that sounds simple. And let's look at confidential, and I want to draw your attention to the word damage. Because if you listen closely for the impact of a release, you will hear the word damage used. And so confidential information is material that would cause damage or be prejudicial to national security if publicly available. What does that really mean? It means, in simple English, that the material is gossip, but it's true gossip. So, for example, one step ahead. Let me get on the right page and give you my example. Do you all remember when the House of Representatives, the Republican side wanted to release information about the collusion information that they had found? If you had listened closely to the damage, they would have said the material would have caused damage. That means it was confidential. When the word damage is by itself without a modifier, it's confidential. If Trump's schedule, one could even argue that that's unclassified. Sure, it's embarrassing. All right, it was embarrassing. The definition of confidential is the release would embarrass somebody. But that is the extent of the problem. And in briefings to senior level officers, I would never use confidential. They would have kicked me out of the room. They don't want to know gossip, even if it's true. They want to know if the weapon system is operational and how far it will shoot and how good it is. And that is not confidential information. That's higher classification. So, and the CIA and the Mossad certainly did not want me being kicked out of briefings, so. And that's it, confirmed gossip. Okay, we're on to the next one, secret. Do you see the word damage here? It has the word serious in front of it. So if you hear someone using serious damage, you know you're talking about secret level information. And we'll get to the Iran-Contra as an example of this in a moment. So, secret information is summary level information. It does not include sources. And while I used to sit there and read a lot of secret information and filter it into my presentations to the 4-star generals, I rarely had a secret classification. What's the problem with the release of secret information? If secret information is released, then the enemy would know that you know the information. It's similar to your credit card number. If your credit card number is released and you know it, you're going to change it. And the enemy, the Russians, would change their protocols. When they saw the Cuban Missile Crisis satellite and plane photographs, the Russians started, there were only 2 satellites going around in orbit at the time. They would hide the information they wanted to hide, and they would put out disinformation, fake missiles for the spy satellites to find, if that's what they were after. Now, do you all remember Iran-Contra? Reagan administration, Oliver North. We were selling weapon systems to the Iranians and then taking the money that we got from, and this wasn't the Shah, this was the Ayatollah, the one who put our embassy personnel in jail for a year. And then we would take that money and buy weapons for the Sandinistas. Well, once this became public, the whole system collapsed, and the Sandinistas still won, but it was a lot more difficult, and that's what secret is about. Now, we come to the real classification, top secret. Look at the definition of damage here. Exceptionally grave damage. If you want to know what the release of the fact that NASA was taping U.S. conversations, that's top secret information. People can die when that type of stuff gets released. In addition, programs can collapse. I am sure that we were without proper intelligence for years until such time as we were able to get a new technique up and running. Yeah, let's have some examples. Let's see, I don't know how readable this is. All right, over here. We have a cover sheet with 4 words on it. Byman, talent, keyhole, comment. Those are top secret code words. Byman, and they were all in use when I was in the military. Byman is the CIA satellite. Because we only had a few, 1 or 2 spy satellites up, when the CIA needed information, they would launch their own and then recover it in the air, midair. You remember that? When they were recovering satellites in the net behind a plane? Talent refers to SR-71 and U-2 plane missions. Keyhole is the satellite, and Comet is communications information. So we have three pictures, and pictures by themselves cannot be used without verification. Think of Patton. When he fooled the Germans, they let the German airplanes take pictures of his fake army, and they even had Comet, which was communications jabber, to make them think that the Patton was really the source of the invasion. And over here we have top secret Umbra. Umbra is a CSI classification that I would have used if I were using top secret material. Well, time to get to my career. It started in college. I got a metallurgical engineering degree at Case Institute of Technology. This allowed me to determine how strong steel was. And then I got a master's in ceramic engineering, which is toilet bowl technology. But in addition, I minored in skiing. And you know, the original title of this lecture was My Life Skiing in the Military. So we'll get to that shortly. So I had to talk about skiing, and this is where I got my training. I was at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base with a secret clearance. At the Military Aircraft and Storage Disposition Center, that's the boneyard, that's where all the aircraft went when they left active service. This is a C-121 with our pretty secretary and our group. And this is the war story. So let me take a sip of water and tell you about this aircraft. Does anyone recognize it? It's an A-3 aircraft carrier, aircraft, heavy bomber, Navy. Now, the Navy wanted to do the bombing in Vietnam. And they wouldn't let the Air Force really do much bombing. But these planes were being shot down left or right, and there were no longer enough A-3s on carriers to carry out the mission. And the Air Force was chomping at the bit, let me get in there. And they did after this war story took place. So the admiral in charge of the carrier fleet came out to Davis-Monthan and to explore getting some of the earlier models of the A-3 out of storage and back on the carriers. And he went and he opened the first cockpit, and there was a family of roadrunners swimming in the pilot seat. Real story. And the entire cockpit was rusted out. And it was true for all of the aircraft, and the admiral was pissed. And the material that's used to preserve these aircraft is called spraylat. It's white material with a little black. You can see it on the cockpit and on a window, except the Navy aircraft was cocooned. And what was happening is birds were cutting little bits of chunks in it, and water would get in, and then it would get a rainforest effect. So he noticed that the Navy was spending $200,000 to preserve their aircraft, all of which subsequently went to the chop yard. They were sold for scrap, and the Navy left Davis-Monthan. And the Air Force was spending $10,000, and it looks like that airplane there, one of my test aircraft, and the Army was spending $1.36 draining the oil and just setting them out there. And the admiral said, why are we spending so much in cocooning them and the Air Force less and the Army nothing? And the answer was from the commander, who was subsequently immediately fired. See, these are the wonderful little war stories you pick up in the military. Unless I'm working for the CIA and I'm helping remove people that they want to get rid of. So, he asked the commander of NASDAQ, how hot did it get in the aircraft? And nobody knew. It had never been measured. So, 1972, I'm out there running a test program to measure how hot it got. And as soon as we determined it got into the 190s and melted all the plastic in the cockpits, all of the Army aircraft disappeared to the chop yard, leaving only aircraft. And both of them were so pissed they left. It was no longer, the Army no longer stores at whatever Mazdic's called, or the bone, it's still a boneyard. Whatever it's called today, they don't store, and neither does the Navy. But maybe time for one more quick war story. Got to keep an eye on my time. Anyone recognize that aircraft? That's a B-66, the Air Force's only supersonic nuclear bomber. So now you're going to find out why B-52s were the bombers that the military used, even to the present, for nuclear weapons. This aircraft went supersonic, had 3 pilots, and was a maintenance nightmare, and they put it into the boneyard. And I had another duty while I was there. I did VIP tours. That's 4-star generals, 3-star generals, Congress people, and we always started with the aircraft that dropped the blob over Antarctica, and then I would go show them the B-66 and talk about its problems. But the senator was part of the SALT Treaty, and he said, these are supposed to be gone and chopped up, and they were gone the next day. And after that, I left for my first real spy job. Foreign Technology Division. Names of all these organizations are different because the Air Force likes to change things every 2 or 3 months. I had all the clearances. I remember sitting in a shack waiting for my clearance, reading books for 2 months. And then I became the program manager for 2 Soviet anti-aircraft systems. The ZSU-23-4. All right, so what's that? The Z stands for anti-aircraft. The SU is a tank type. If you know, everyone knows of the T-34, but there was also a series of anti-tank weapons, starting with the letter SU, that the Soviets had. 23, it's show and tell time. FTD had a top secret museum, and somebody decided it was necessary to close it down. And all of the space debris went elsewhere. But I obtained a ZSU-23-4 inert and replica now, or is it real? Who knows? It was in a top secret facility. And this is what a 23 millimeter ZSU-23-4 weapon looks like. The top comes off and you can see the solid steel core, or maybe it's lead, or maybe it's enriched. No, I don't think it's enriched uranium. But this is an armor-piercing shell, which they would not have used against aircraft. They would have used it against tank. Yeah, if you want to see what I'm sure you've all touched and felt this, but if you want to come up and actually remember your last visit with a ZSU-23-4 shell, totally inert, no firing pins or gunpowder, come up and look at it. And then I had another system, and these were captured in the Six-Day War in '68. And this is this monster shell here. This is a ZSU-2057-2. Mobile anti-aircraft armored vehicle with 2 barrels shooting this not-so-light shell. This is a heavy shell. And let's see what the museum said about it. It has an altitude of 5 miles. The projectile itself weighs 6 pounds, and when it explodes, it has a 33-foot radius of destruction. If you want to see what one of these monsters feel like, carefully, this will dent the stage if you drop it. Come up and take a look at it. So these were my projects that and of course, what was the Air Force interested in? The shells? No, that's Army stuff. They were interested in the radar systems that controlled the shells. And we, obviously for jamming purposes, and that's why I had the top secret code word. But something else was going on at Foreign Technology Division while I was there. This is where the aliens come in. Project Blue Book. And I was in the exact office. I was in the exact desk that the scientist Dr. Hyman sat in, the civilians tell me, and he ran the program. It was UFO research and on UFO sightings. This is area Hangar 19. You know, this is where supposedly the Roswell aliens went for medical research. I was there 2 years after the program had ended. This hangar has subsequently been torn down. Also, the flying saucer was there. I went into the building, and here is what I saw. It was empty. So, when in the military you want to know what's going on, you've got to talk to the Air Force civilians. They are the historical knowledge, and I talk to them. You know how I hate to talk to people, and I won't do conversations, so I talked to them. And I said, what's going on with Project Blue Book? Are you ready? Yes. Now, before I can answer that, we got to go back to Roswell. Keeping my eye on time. Roswell was a UFO crash. And people say, hey, it got from God knows where to the United States. How come it suddenly crashed? Well, the system that got it through space is System 1, and the system that ran it through the atmosphere is System 2. And it broke, and the thing crashed. And they had a cover story, a weather balloon, which everyone involved in it says they knew what weather balloons look like. That's not what the crash site looks like. So, and if you want some more information on Project Blue Book, they have a series on the History Channel. I can't verify that, but I can tell you exactly what the civilians told me about Project Blue Book. It was a cover story, like the weather balloon. The real research was being done elsewhere by other people. This was a cover designed to discredit UFO stories. Okay. Sorry for all those that wanted some real in-depth information about UFOs. Okay, more intelligence. HUMIT. My interviewing of the civilians is an example of HUMIT. When you ask people questions, that's HUMIT, human intelligence. And examples are James Bond defectors, intercepted letters, refugees, stolen computers, hacking. This is all human type of material, and it's less reliable. Comet signalant is, that's where the getting the emails, the hacking, again, of emails, and all of that stuff comes in. It's very reliable. It is very reliable. And then finally we have photons. Aircraft and satellite photographs, extremely reliable as a picture can be. And of course my job is again to take this type of information and determine whether or not it's real. And what's important to my commander and what is totally unimportant. Okay, then I went to headquarters UCOM in Stuttgart, Germany. I was the foreign aircraft and missile analyst. I got a lot more top secret code word coverage. And I would get into my office at 4 in the morning every day, Monday through Friday. We went skiing on weekends. Yes, we went skiing on weekends, and I would prepare a briefing that would eventually go to Alexander Haig. Yes, that's the Alexander Haig who was Reagan's Secretary of State that said he was in charge when Reagan was shot. He missed a few people in front of him. But anyway, that's Alexander Haig. I also was a watch officer, and that meant I got, if something interesting happened, to call all the 3- and 4-star generals and wake them up, because I was nighttime, and why shouldn't, I was awake, why shouldn't they be awake, and tell them about important stuff. The most important was when Russia invaded Afghanistan in 1977. I was on duty, got the telegraph, teletype, thank you. Got the teletype and made the phone calls, and then when Idi Amin was kicked out of Uganda, I got to call again. But speaking of calling, this is a little-known war story. It was very hard to call the United States. And when I was a watch officer, I had access to a button called Flash Override, my favorite button. When I pressed that, it cleared every single phone conversation in the network. Then I hung up and picked it up, and I was able to call home without any problems whatsoever. Okay, skiing. I was in the ski club, I led ski trips, and I really can't talk about this because this is unclassified. I had secret missions. I will talk about one of my James Bond experiences while on this assignment. I went to the Paris Air Show and a Russian airplane crashed. And I was out in the field with the other people that were visiting, collecting pieces of the aircraft, which we turned over to Foreign Technology Division, as it turned out, for them to analyze. Oh, my officer, I didn't discover this until I was lent a book by Ted Taylor about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I read it. And I discovered my 3-star general, immediate commanding officer, flew the U-2 mission that found the missile sites in Cuba, the first one. So, anyway. And it didn't continue there. From there, I got even more code words because I went back to Hanscom Air Force Base outside of Boston, and Electronic Systems Division, names all changed now, remember. And I was the project manager for an over-the-horizon low-frequency radar system being developed to communicate with submarines. And because of my experience in Germany, the commander, a 3-star general, asked me to provide him the daily intelligence briefing, and that's why I had almost every code word that one could have so that I could gather information across a broad spectrum to brief him. He, General Marsh, later became 4 stars and the commander of Systems Command. And all good things must come to an end. I decided to become an ROTC officer. Here at the University of Washington, I met Janice, my wife, while I was here, and we got married. Let's see what we got. I taught American foreign policy, and there's Janice and I in our dress uniform. Then I went back to Wright-Patterson, and I was the first project officer with a secret clearance for the electronic warfare system of the F-35, the current F-35. And I was in charge of the electronic warfare system. I came up with the name for it. We called it INEWS, Integrated Electronic Warfare System. They dropped that name after my rank was not high enough to continue the project. And that's that. And it shows that with a secret clearance, you can be in jobs that might have top secret elements. But no one was telling me the information about the electronic warfare system. And finally, I went to Onizuka Air Force Base. Remember Onizuka, one of the astronauts killed in the blow-up of a shuttle? And I was a contracts manager. I managed a $4 billion spy satellite contract. And I wrote contracts. And I saved the Air Force $1 million. And I discovered they did not want to save $1 million. It created problems in spending that they didn't want to deal with. So that's my Air Force career. But and it took 2 days to be read out of my top secret clearances. Oh God, it was forever. I had so many. But, you know, spies never retire. Any idea yet what my real spy mission was? Well, we'll find out. I became a James Bond type of spy at long last by becoming a mystery shopper. So the correct answer that 3 or 4 you got was I mystery shopped the marketing department at Mirabella. Susan, who did not remember I had mystery shopped her, and that is the key mark of a spy. Should not be remembered. So, let's look at the characteristics of a great spy. You've got to be an actor and play a role. I was at Shake Shack today doing a mystery shop, and it was a mess down there, but they had no idea I was a mystery shopper. Memory and accuracy. And one of these days I'm going to give a presentation on how to be a mystery shopper. It's a job that everyone here can do if you can walk. Not necessarily down icy, slopey sidewalks, but there are lots of mystery shops in downtown Seattle. Memory and accuracy. It really improves it. You just got to let go of your beliefs. No biases, no blue silo, no red silo. You've got to be totally objective, and that's what the commanding generals wanted, and that's what the mystery shoppers want. And now, I'm going to surprise you, the final characteristic of being a successful spy. How did James Bond know all those bad guys were on the other side of the door? Using psychic skills. And I am a psychic. So, if you can learn these skills, you'll be a spy or a mystery shopper. Now, it's time for questions, only unclassified ones. Wait. We have 10 minutes, that's plenty of time for questions. And by the way, my next Resident Revelation, unscheduled, will be my life as a psychic. And if I told you some of the things I was up to as a psychic, I'll give you one example, just to whet your appetite. I am deep in the development of a project to communicate with the dead. Not through a medium, but actually through a computer program. It's coming. You may hear about it yet this year. I'm involved. Okay, now it's time for questions. Thank you. All right, we got our first question. Anything else? Otherwise, we've got to the end. Thank you so much.